So if you're in this room, I'm assuming it's because you're a masochist. So hi, welcome to Networking for Marketers. I am giving this talk because I am a marketer and I'm also a masochist, so please don't feel called out by anything that I'm about to say. However, I do want to discuss a little bit about me and my business before I get too deep into everything. Hi, if you don't know me, my name is Sophia. I run Philosophy Solutions, which is a graphic design freelance. I traffic mostly in brand creation, so your typical brand kits, your logos, things like that for either people who don't have them or people who maybe had it done on Fiverr, no judgment, mostly. Or people who maybe they've got a family-owned business and they need to rejudge things after about 50 years because things are finally moving into the area of tech. So that being said, I also do social media management, pays the bills, it's monthly. I also do event consults, so that would be the planning, the actual digital marketing that goes into it, and then the CRM follow-up, because who cares if people came to your event if you're not actually keeping that information, right? And then just freelance consulting. So if you ever want my opinions, I like to tell people, for the most part, my opinions are free and I will yap at anybody who will listen. So that being said, if you're ever interested in having your marketing torn apart, please call me. But today I'm not tearing your marketing apart. I'm first going to tear myself apart so that we can be very vulnerable together. But I want to talk about my backstory. Is anybody else in here a corporate dropout, or is that just me? And it's just you and me, Mark, unfortunately. So I was never one of those kids that knew exactly what I wanted to do when I first, thought about having a career. My friends wanted to be airplane pilots or doctors or wanted to save the world. And I just wanted to play piano and be in theater and read books and have people leave me alone. I'm an extreme introvert. So when I got to college, copped out, did a business major, figured that that would serve me somewhat, but I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go from there. Exited college, entered the corporate world in the medical field. I was working as the executive assistant to the vice president of HR at Rochester Regional Health, which was a very big mouthful. During COVID, which was super not fun, I ended up moving into the real estate field because I was super, super bored, and I figured, what is there that I could possibly do that's going to not keep me stagnant? If any of you guys are familiar with real estate, you know that that is the most turbulent field. There's always something for you to learn, and there's always people doing crazy things that you have to mitigate, and I love putting out fires. So I started in the real estate career. I was not a real estate agent. I did work for the corporate office, and that is where I started marketing, which I'm sure a lot of you were wondering when I would get to. The marketing that I started was helping the onboarding and offboarding process for all of the agents that we were recruiting. Your $1 million agents with the white label area where they really needed to be pulled in, have their deals transferred over, understand the new tech. And then, because I worked for a brokerage that allowed for a lot of self-expression, I was able to help people come up with what their brand identity was. I had never done that before. They were using Fiverr. I knew a little bit about graphic design, and I was like, you know what? I feel as though I should try this thing out. So I taught myself how to use graphic design software a little bit more in depth, realized that I absolutely loved being able to take somebody, tagline, from concept to complete in the real estate industry. And what I mean by that is having that hour consult with a real estate agent and talking to them about what makes them tick. What is the area of expertise that they're in? Who are the communities that they serve? And then going through, okay, how do I take a industry that is overpopulated with house and key logos and make somebody stand out? How does somebody know that they are Joe Schmo's ideal client in a sea full of real estate agents in one of the most popular cities to buy a house in the United States? So that is where I started with graphic design in general. And then I ended up just experiencing an extreme amount of corporate burnout. I had a boss that I didn't really love. I felt like I wasn't getting enough done in a day when I was also simultaneously losing hair. And I figured, why continue to do that if I could go work off on my own? So now I'm freelance. Done that for about 2.5 years. And the first year of my freelance in general was a lot of reputation remediation. And what I mean by that is a lot of people don't like when you exit corporate. You may or may not be familiar. I hope that you're not. A lot of people don't love when you leave corporate. It leaves a bad taste in people's mouth when you decide to be independent. So for me, the biggest thing for me outside of trying to make money was showing up and keeping my face relevant for all of the people that I was trying to continuously work with as I exited the actual corporate field. And then also getting over my appalling stage fright because I did not want to talk to a soul. I had like a 5-by-5 foot little barn door office that did not lock. And I loved when people would forget that I existed and leave me alone in it. And so having to move from that to actually having to go out and talk to people to make money was obscene for me. So that being said, I'm now a successful business owner of 2.5 years, and I have a little bit to say about networking. So moving forward, some of you guys might know me, and this sounds so posery, but it is what it is. Some of you guys might know me as the networking queen of Buffalo. If you are on my LinkedIn, I post honestly probably too much. You might have me muted. But I run a networking newsletter, and I'll get a little bit more into that later. But the reason why I'm called the networking queen of Buffalo is because I realized that I had bills stacking up, and I had no pipeline due to the reputation remediation piece. And I needed to pay rent. I needed to be able to exist as a human being in an oversaturated field where there are so many people that claim they know what to do in terms of marketing. Maybe there are people using AI to create logos. Maybe there are people who are YouTube, oriented and maybe can do a bit but can't do as much as a professional. So having to battle against the oversaturated field while also trying to figure out, okay, like, how am I balancing my books and making sure that I can pay rent, pay to feed my dog, pay to exist as a human, and still feel the self-confidence enough to be able to make myself stick out from somebody and not sound absolutely desperate? It was really hard for me. And so the number one thing that I had to do in order to make a sale was show up like crazy. I was hitting maybe 8 or 9 networking events a week. As an introvert, I did not want to talk to people. And if you already don't want to talk to people, you probably know that sales is like 9 times harder than that. So for me, I was literally star chart motivating myself. I had a big calendar on my wall, and every time that I went to a networking event and I talked to one person, I would put a big red check number. And for me, being able to count how many of those that I did successfully a week, even if I made no sales, was the only thing that kept me going, because I was like, if I can't do this, I have to go back to corporate, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to lose my hair again. I don't want to be told to take a vacation day when it's snowing in Buffalo and I drive a Honda Accord. So for me, that motivation and being able to tangibly see that was really important. And as per my last bullet point, sometimes I was going to these events and I could not even afford a drink at these bar events, but I went because that was the consistency piece that I needed for people to remember me. So I was at an event, I think a little bit over a year and a half ago, and the event itself was subpar, but I had a girl that I now have on my networking bench walk up to me and she said, I see you everywhere. And I don't know who you are, I don't know your name, I've never actually talked to you, but every event that I go to, you're there before I walk in and you're there like when I'm leaving. You stay the entire time. How do you know where to find all these events? And I just kind of looked at her and laughed, and I was like, girl, like, I just gotta pay bills. Like, I don't wanna seem like I'm desperate, but I'm desperate for a sale, anything to make that work. And she was like, well, honestly, like, you just kind of seem like the networking queen of Buffalo. Like, I swear to God, everywhere I turn, that's where you are. Where are you headed next? And so for me, I realized, okay, like, it seems like I must be doing things correctly. It was a huge encouragement for me. So I continued networking and continued pushing forward. And then I started getting that response from so many other people. I started receiving LinkedIn DMs being like, hey, Sophia, where are you going? Is there anything happening this week? Like, who do you know? Who should I know? What's happening? And then I started to get a little exasperated because I was getting more traffic doing that than I was with my actual marketing career. And I was like, guys, I just want to make logos. Please leave me alone. So that being said, I decided to make a newsletter purely out of just the absolute spite of not wanting to have to copy and paste the same DM to the same 15 people at that point every single week. So I created the Buffalo Brief, which is a networking newsletter. Again, I'll get into that piece. But building the networking queen persona, which is what most people know me for, started from an absolute do or die. I have to make a sale. If I don't make a sale, I don't eat, my dog doesn't eat, and like my life doesn't go on. I have to go back into the corporate. I have to go back into the wheel. So that being said, if you don't like networking, believe me, I understand it, and I'm there with you. And as much as I've done it tons at this point, it's still not easy for me. So I learned a lot of things when I first started networking, and I think that there is a definite incline to being able to actually count ROI and get referrals and get people to actually take you seriously. And one of the things that I realized, so if I haven't made this clear, I'm a freelancer, I'm a solopreneur. I don't have anybody that works for me. I don't work for anybody else. My clients are my clients. I love it that way. I'm able to maintain responsibility and accountability for everything that I touch. If I screw up, it's on me. If it's brilliant and amazing and perfect, it's also all me. And I enjoy that like crazy. So for me, it was really hard for me to establish, okay, I'm at a networking event. I obviously want leads. I want referrals. How do I get people to remember what I do without me just vomiting a bunch of sales at them? Like, how do I get people to actually want to remember me and work with me? Again, in a very oversaturated field, there's lots of people that do what I do in Buffalo, or claim to. So that being said, being a sole proprietor, it was really hard for me to separate the business from the self, because in my brain, those things they're the same thing, right? I am my business. My business is called Philosophy Solutions. It's a play on my name. I'm not bad at spelling, it's Sophie. But that being said, that was really, really difficult for me, and I didn't understand, because I loved my business so much, how to be able to separate the two. So I did a lot of soul searching on, okay, like, let's take the marketing out of it. Why do I love what I do? I love what I do because I'm talking to people 24/7. I'm really understanding what they want as a person, and then I'm able to, like, almost like a magician, meld that into their industry and help other people see what I see, because they're not able to make that happen on their own. I'm making what they want to look like tangible. That is insane to me. So I really started to focus on the why portion of what I enjoy doing, not the sale. The sale doesn't matter. So moving from that, I started to realize there were a lot of things about networking events I really didn't like. I hate being elevator pitched. I understand that there's a reason for it. I can't stand it, and I can't stand being in a group full of people with name tags and we're all awkwardly looking at each other like we all are pointing guns at each other. There's nothing helpful about being in a room of people that don't want to network with aides that try to make it a little bit more comfortable. And I realized, okay, do people really want to network, or are they here because they feel forced? Are people here because they think that that's going to help their business, or are they here because, man, it's a Thursday night and I should go network? It's not a reason to network. Who am I beyond my business if I am my business, right? Like, you need to be able to stand in front of other people and talk about yourself, not just your sale, because at the end of the day, you're selling a relationship. So that being said, I think in the marketing industry in particular, it's really, really easy to get hyper analytical about how you're presenting yourself. I don't know if any of you guys run social media. I do that a fair amount. Doing it for myself is like the absolute worst. I would rather die than touch my own social media. And I think a lot of other people feel the same about their industries. Doing what I do for myself is something that I'd rather put off to the last possible minute. So, talking about that, one of the ways that's been really, really easy for me to start putting that effort into marketing myself is being able to look at, okay, people are talking to me because they want a logo, but they're trusting me with being able to get them from point A to point B and make sure that that is cohesive, right? You're not going to come to me as a real estate agent and have me make you some generic house and key logo because you think it might make sense. You're gonna come to me because you know that what I make you is gonna help you sell yourself. That's the reason why there's a sale. You're not really buying my expertise. You're not really buying how good I am at graphic design. You're buying my storytelling. And I can't storytell for you if we don't have a modicum of trust and that vulnerability. So in the marketing industry, again, and it's very easy to get sucked into the data and the analytics, and I'm self-professed not a numbers person. I think that it's really important to focus on the relationship that you're selling to somebody, even if you're in a data-heavy field, right? Like, even working in CRMs and paid ads, things like that are so analytics and numbers heavy, it's really easy to get lost in that piece. But ultimately, you're selling the trust, right, with your client. You're selling the ability to be able to take them from point A to point B in a way that they wouldn't be able to do themselves. They understand what you do, but they can't achieve that, and they're trusting you. That being said as well, on the flip side, when you're doing it for yourself, you putting time into your own business is not taking away your ability to do that for other people. And what I mean by that is time is money, and spending time on your business is not taking money out of your pocket. Anytime you go network, or you make a post about yourself, or you do, edits on your website, that's making you money. That is going to add to your business and add to the backbone of the networking that you do. Because the first thing you do when you're networking is you hand somebody a card, or you send them to your website, or you schedule a one-on-one where they want to see all of your information in the background. And in order to do that, you have to set the time aside in order to set up that infrastructure. That being said, who here has heard of SEO? I know this is like a really new topic. Fantastic, I'm so glad. That being said, I am of the opinion, and I could be wrong because I don't do SEO, so Mariah, please,
Sure.
yell at me if I need you to. I think that your SEO should start physically. I understand that we're in an age where technology is running rampant, and AI is huge, and I love that. It's so helpful. However, if you can't stand here and tell me who you are, what you do, and why you do it, your website's not going to tell anybody that. If you cannot regurgitate it yourself, AI only puts out what you put in. So that being said, what are your physical searchable keywords? How are people remembering you from a networking event? What are your backlinks? How are people hearing about you before they've met you? How are you establishing who you are as a person? Example of this, and it's cringy, but it's what works for me. Other than the networking queen, I have a genetic issue where I don't process alcohol correctly. If I drink it too fast, I immediately get a headache. I turn bright red. It's very obvious, and it's not great. Most networking events, people are drinking, and I'll drink socially. So in order to combat that, the thing that helps with that for me is eating carbs and eating salt. So I will routinely buy a McDonald's large fry and shove that shit in my purse, and then carry my purse around with me and eat a fry, take a sip, eat a fry, take a sip. I'll offer to people, but like, that's what I do. It helps me stay in the zone that I need to be in without passing out. But it also is a talking piece. The amount of people that will comment on my LinkedIn or who will remember me or walk up to me at an event and be like, hey, you don't have purse fries today. Or hey, like where are the purse fries? I thought this was a thing. Before they know about the networking cleaner, before they even know that I do marketing, they're like, wait, you're carrying a different purse today. Like, did your fries just not fit? Or like, what's the deal? For you, your searchable keywords do not have to be marketing, SEO, data analytics, video, websites. They can be, she always has a purple purse and it's really ugly, but we love her and she's easy to find. Things like that. I don't know if anybody has any ideas of what some good ones for themselves would be that they might want to share. I just got real vulnerable with purse fries here. Yes?
I'm always sketching, so.
I love it. I hope you're not drawing me. Oh God.
Definitely not.
Oh great, okay good. Hopefully I look nice. Anybody else have any that they want to share? It's okay if not. Yes?
I feel like most people recognize me from my hair.
Yes.
Not many people have.
That's the only reason I knew who you were, I'm gonna be honest. But yeah, so things like that again, they don't have to be your business, and honestly, they really shouldn't be. I've had people remember me because I have a 140-pound German Shepherd that I talk about to anybody that will listen, and so many people love, oh my God, I wanna see pictures of your dog. How is he doing? Like, what's going on with him? Do you have any recent stories you wanna tell? Can I follow his Instagram? Like, yes, obviously. So that being said, I think that those pieces are really important because they establish you as a human. Before we get to the marketing, we're selling trust, right? Why would I sell to you? Why would you work with me? How is this relationship going to continue past the first sale? It's not gonna if you don't have the trust, and the trust is easily established when you are talking human to human, not salesperson to client. It doesn't work that way. So that being said, if you see me at a networking event and you want fries, come find me. That being said, talking about selling without selling. So there's a couple rules of thumb that I really like to look at in terms of when I go to an event, what am I doing? First one, and I hate to be that person, but appearances really matter, especially the first time. There's a person that I know that goes networking, fabulous person, always stinks. And whenever I see this person, I'm like, I'm gonna be on the opposite side of the room. And it just kind of is what it is. If you look or smell or are perceived a certain way, people remember that. And the same can be said for your demeanor. I post very, very opinionatedly on LinkedIn, but there's somebody who came up to me at a networking event and was flirting with me like crazy. And whenever I see him in any sort of business field, immediately my brain just doesn't take him seriously because he didn't take me seriously at the networking event I first met him at. It would take a lot of effort for him to change my mind and my perception on what kind of person and what kind of salesperson he is. The way that you present yourself matters. And it doesn't have to be salesy, and again, and I'll go more into this even more in depth, it really shouldn't be, I don't think. So again, being clean and hygienic and looking nice and not being over or underdressed for an event, but then also just presenting yourself the way that you'd like to be perceived, it's extremely important. If you're putting on like so large of a mask that you don't feel like yourself, or you're trying to be somebody that you're not for one specific person and you can't remember how you were acting person to person, no one's gonna remember you because it's not authentic. People sell to people. And on top of that, this is not the home channel. I'm not gonna stand up here and talk to you about, oh my goodness, you should buy my products and here is all of it in 5 minutes and hey, you should buy from me, and then bop from person to person. That's not how sales works. It's not how building relationships work. If I wanna be sold to like that, I'll just go watch a bunch of YouTube ads. Like that's not why you're there. Networking is not for sales, it's for building relationships with people who will give you sales and building that trust. So that being said, if you're going to hop around people and just consistently try to sell them on a product, and everybody is watching you do that and they're noting your inauthenticity and your inability to connect as a human rather than as a salesperson, it's probably not going to get you very far. So moving forward, the difference between a personal and a professional brand. I think that this is so crucial. So when we're talking about your business, we want to know, who are you as a business? Very simple. What's your identity? What is the gap you fill in your industry? If you cannot answer this, soul search and come back to it. If you cannot identify Okay, yes, you do websites. Well, websites for who? What kind of website? You know, are you doing Shopify? Do you have ads running? Is there a CRM background? Like, are we doing email newsletters? Like, what are we doing? Are we designing? So what is the gap that you fill in your industry, and why? So for example, a big niche of mine is luxury real estate. It's where I got started. It's where I feel like my design aesthetic makes the most sense. And that's my niche because I love the challenge, and I feel as though aesthetically I make the most sense there. I think being able to identify those things about your business is important. And then moving forward, how do you fill that gap? What are the tangible things that you do that enable you to really be the person that cements in that area? And that is all well and good versus why on earth should I trust you? You come up to me, I say that I need a logo, and you're like, great, oh my God, I do a logo. Okay, cool. Why should I work with you when I've got 15 people in my email inbox per day saying that they'll do it for free? I've got 2 people on Instagram that look like they know what they're doing, maybe, and then I've got people on Fiverr that I'll pay $5 to get a logo. Why should I have you do it? Why you as a person? How am I gonna remember who you are? If we're at an event and you don't have purse fries on you, you should, it's very memorable. How am I gonna remember who exactly you are and what you do? It's great if I remember who you are in general, but what if I don't remember a connect to your business? The authenticity piece is so important because you are your business, right? Even if you're not a solopreneur, you are your business. And so to be talking about who you are and what you do, it all kind of comes together. And if you don't make that connection and you don't make it memorably enough, people are not going to really have the tangible piece to be able to remember, okay, like I like her dog, but like shit, what the hell does she do? And then finally, why would I meet with you outside of networking? The amount of times that I have met with people at a networking event and they talk to me about, okay, like this has been really great, this is what I do, this is what you do, like we talked about, the bread and potatoes, great. And then I get a follow-up email and they're like, okay, great, let's talk, like let's go get coffee, XYZ, love to talk more about what we do. Well, we did that. Why would we meet again? Why would we chat again? What do you have to offer? What am I getting from this relationship? Are we going to be bench referral partners? Is there a way for our businesses to collaborate maybe in a way that's going to be fruitful for both of us? Or do you just want to know more about what I do? Like let's chat about that piece, because if we've already discussed, here's what I do and here's what you do, why would I pay the gas money and pay for a coffee at some overpriced coffee shop to come talk to you about what you do? Like we've covered that if we've done it correctly. So why is there potential to continue to speak? And being able to marry the two of those is what's really going to get you far. And then you go to the digital SEO, then you market, then you're able to start adding things. So for me, when I started my newsletter, I was, albeit a little exasperated with the amount of people that were asking me where to go. I really felt a lot of imposter syndrome calling myself the networking queen of Buffalo, because that feels like a really big title, right? And it's not one that's self-imposed, but because not everybody knows the story that you guys know, sometimes it might look that way. Being able to put that on my profile took me forever because I felt I had to establish the ethos of it first. I had to say it to enough people. I had to have it said about myself enough. And in order to do that, I had to go to a ton of events where I was talking about my newsletter and talking about where I was going and showing face so that people knew my newsletter wasn't just some sort of AI generated slop. I had to contribute to that ethos consistently in order to keep it going. In order to come up with the digital beyond the meat and potatoes of what you do, you have to be personal and you have to be in person first. People will not remember you based off of just your website unless it's super, super fabulous and well done. And even then, there's no guarantee. So, the social GPS, trying to figure out where to go has always been a big struggle in Buffalo. I find that you guys either have tons of events. I say you guys, I'm not from here. You guys either have tons of events or you have absolutely nothing. If you've noticed, Thursdays are super overpopulated for Buffalo. There's probably 6 to 9 events on any given Thursday, depending on the season. And then maybe on like a Wednesday, absolutely nothing. So here's a couple tidbits based on what I've learned, and I can't guarantee you that I'm going to recommend events that make the most sense for you. In my experience, I try to recommend events that are marketed properly. So for example, I've had a couple people comment on my newsletter and be like, well, there's this coffee event and you didn't put it in there. Well, if I send my viewers to try to go find that coffee event, find more information, register, can they find it on their own? Is everything marketed in a way where it's easy to find? So that being said, for me, I like to find events that are easily marketed, that are well populated, and that I'm hearing good reviews about if I haven't physically been there first. If I'm hearing that, you know, some people are feeling like it's too clicky and there's not a reason to go, or that, man, they charge $90 and we just had boxed pizza, like that goes into account when I'm thinking about rooms I want to be in. So number one thing, Chambers of Commerce. I feel like not enough people are looking at events that Chambers of Commerce put on. Just because you're not a member does not mean you can't go. There are tons in this area. I could list many, but I heavily hit those when I'm trying to come up with my networking list. Chambers of Commerce are massive, and a lot of what they're doing is trying to spend their budget to give education. So that piece is huge. LinkedIn events. LinkedIn, I think, needs to do a better job of making them a little bit more accessible because it's hard to filter them. However, I don't personally traffic in virtual networking events, not really my thing. I don't find a lot of ROI in them personally. However, for physical ones, some people will only put their event on LinkedIn because they don't realize the power of a meetup or an Eventbrite or a Facebook event. So I highly recommend going through and looking for those in your area, particularly within your network. Charity organizations are massive. If you know me as a person, you know that gala season is my heavy hitter season, and the reason for that is because all of the people who are looking to make high dollar connections, who really want to spend money and who really want to put a lot of effort back into their business and their marketing, are going to be at galas or sponsoring galas or at a golf fundraiser. Those are the areas where you're going to find a lot of high ROI people to partner with. So charity organizations are massive. And then when you're finding organizers, bookmarking them. So there's a lot of people in this area that tend to just consistently throw events, even if they're not an organization. So finding the people on LinkedIn that are throwing events, and again, I'm gonna keep leaning on LinkedIn, but it's so well used in Buffalo. Finding the people that create those events and who consistently throw them, bookmark those people, be in touch with them, and just consistently have that touch point be routine throughout your week, because that is going to be so helpful to you. There's so many organizations that throw events, but there's so many individuals that do them and honestly do them a little better. So keep in mind your network. Going through and trying to figure out what rooms to go through. So like I mentioned, Thursdays are insane. If you're an event organizer in Buffalo, please stop scheduling on Thursdays. You're hurting yourself because you are making your people choose between what event is closest, starts at what time, has food, and is the cheapest. And that's never a good reason for somebody to attend or not attend your event. That being said, when I'm looking at rooms that I want to be in and trying to figure out where to go, I'm trying to figure out, okay, number one, what's my networking budget for the month? As we know, I started off going to free ones, drinking water, not buying anything. So my budget was 0. Say now that maybe my networking budget is 100. If I'm seeing an event that's like 50 bucks, probably not gonna go to that one unless it's super high ROI. Maybe it's a charity fundraiser or something like that. Or if I've got a large amount of sponsorship budget, maybe we'll reconsider, but make sure that your budget makes sense and try to stick to that in the beginning, because we'll talk about scaling in a second. The type of event. So there's a lot of different types of networking events specifically that happen here. You have your more heavily structured ones, kind of like BNI or Quality Contacts. You've got a couple different groups like Forge Buffalo that do things that are a little bit more amoeba-like. You come in, you network, you pass out a couple cards, you talk to some friends, and then you jet. And then there are some that are like, they don't do anything super routine, but you kind of come in for something a little bit more titular. You talk to them about specifically what's going on. Maybe there's some sort of event paired with it, and then you scoop. So that being said, really be mindful of the type of event. So for the ones that are a little bit more structured, there's probably going to be a membership fee. There's probably going to be reasons why you have to attend a certain amount of meetings. If you can't commit to that, that's okay. Structured events are not for me. That being said, also, there's a hierarchy between afternoon or evening and morning events. I'm not getting up at the crack of dawn to go and network with people. That sounds awful. Like, I'm a monster even after 2 cups of coffee. You should have seen me this morning. So that being said, if you're not a morning networker, that's absolutely cool. But then make sure that you're putting the afternoon and the evening ones into your schedule. There's a very wide variety in Buffalo and a lot of really well-established people and organizations that are doing those things. So if your excuse to not network is because you don't want to get up early in the morning, I'm so sorry, but there are evening ones and you should be attending them. What is your goal per event? So we've established that I'm an introvert, which probably feels funny because I'm up here yapping, but it is what it is. My goal per event when I first started was just to go, just to get in the car and go. And before I had developed my whole purse fries formula, it was, okay, if I go to an event, I get to get McDonald's fries after because that makes me happy. That's my thing. And so I would go, I would do that, and even if I didn't talk to anybody, I went and I accomplished my goal, I got my fries and I went home, and I still do that if I haven't gotten them beforehand. Then it was, okay, I'm gonna talk to one person, I'm gonna talk to 3. Nothing about closing sales, just getting used to talking to people. When you get to a networking event where there are lots of little clicks, it's really hard to feel like you know exactly which conversations to go into and which ones to exit. It's really, really hard to know how to traverse that, especially when you're by yourself. And oftentimes when you start this habit, and it is a habit that you have to upkeep, you really have to be comfortable with being by yourself for a very large portion of it. So what is your goal per event? And then make sure you're modulating that. It's not gonna stay stagnant. You're going to grow skills. You need to grow your goals and your challenges. So what's your goal? And then having a rolling calendar. So for me, because I have the networking brief, I have a rolling Excel spreadsheet of everything that's happening in the area. I try to keep my ear to the ground, and then on Sundays I publish my post. However, I have lines highlighted in my Excel spreadsheet of, okay, these are the ones that make sense for me. I've got all sorts of different industries, like I know Women in Construction in Buffalo, super healthy organization, they don't throw things a lot. I'll post that stuff, but it's not something I'm going to attend. It doesn't fit my brief. I'm never going to coffee meetups. Those are insane to me, but I'll post them for other people. What kind of rolling calendar am I looking at? Especially if it's an organization that I want to consistently attend. Okay, they meet twice a month. I should go at least once, depending on the amount of other events that I'm attending. I need to consistently be showing up. So having that rolling calendar so that you have eyes on, oh man, it's been 3 weeks and I didn't go to anything and I've lost my progress. Like, no one wants that. Keep your rolling calendar. And then, Buffalonians aren't gonna like to hear this. I'm from Virginia, so I get to be nitpicky. Just because it's summer doesn't mean that you should stay inside. No one in Buffalo networks during the summer. It's like everything just dies, despite the amount of golf tournaments that we've had this summer. I understand that in the winter there's nothing better to do because it's really nasty out, but you lose momentum because a networking person that you meet in summer might be a closed deal in winter. If you didn't do that, you've lost it. So if you're starting to try to network in like November, that's fantastic. Start whenever you're able to start, but it's gonna take a second. Again, networking is not lead generating and sales to the extent that it is bench building and reputation building. So if you're expecting to make sales after your first networking event, or even your 50th, you might be a little disappointed. So don't stop just because it's nice out. The people that are consistent and the people that are showing up all the time are the people that are going to be remembered when somebody needs something. So that's a really big piece, and Buffalo needs to get out of their houses a little bit more when it comes to being nice outside. Working the room. How do you conquer a room efficiently? So you can't just yap like me and bring fries and that will drag people to you, but my rules of thumb tend to be quality over quantity. So I could talk to a room of 50 people and say the exact same thing that I'm telling to you guys, and that's fine, but I try to pinpoint the kind of people that look like they would be the kind of person I would talk to on a regular basis. So for example, we're talking about being authentic, right? Whenever I spot a nerd, that's my target. If I spot a white gangly man in a beanie, I'm like, that's my guy. Because I know I'm gonna go talk to him about Magic the Gathering, he's gonna remember who I am, and in a year he's gonna send me his sister for a logo, and that's what it's gonna be. I know the kind of people that I get along with, and I know the kind of people that are going to remember me because we've got something in common. If I see a woman with a dog on her screensaver on her phone, we're chatting and I'm showing her dog pictures, even though I'm not that big of a dog mom, like we're having that conversation. So again, you could talk to everybody, or you could pinpoint the people that you think are gonna remember who you are and what you do and why that's helpful. You need to build a bench. And I know it's corporate speak, and I know that I've broken away from the wheel, but there's a lot of corporate-isms that I use a lot. Building a bench is one of them. I don't mean that you need to build a bunch of people that are going to just send you referrals BNI style. I personally am not a huge fan of BNI if you're familiar with what it is. I think that your bench should just be people that support your business that know what you do, and it does not need to be any more complicated than that. I've got people who do HR, who do payroll, who also do marketing, who do real estate, all sorts of people on my board and on my bench. And I think for me, it's less about how our industries coexist and how like a sale for them is a sale for me. It's more about how they want me to be successful, how they're excited about what I'm doing, how they look at what I do and they're like, wow, I don't know how you do that. For example, my best friend is an HR rep, and I watch the way that she talks to people when she's conflict mitigating over the phone or when she's going through a playbook, and I'm like, wow, like this woman is a shark. Like I would recommend her to anybody because I see her skill level, I know her as a person, I know her integrity, and I know that she's gonna be insanely good at whatever she does. So again, I tend to think of my bench as like networking friends, right? You don't have to be friends with everybody, but it's so much more about establishing yourself as a person and why they would recommend working with you, because remember, it's a relationship, why they would work with you and why you're a good sell, because if the relationship works and the integrity works, the rest of it is so easy. It's really not about the meat of what you do. And then be consistent as hell, including in the summer. Show up everywhere. If I had not consistently shown up the way that I did, I would not have my newsletter, which is top of funnel for me. I get more leads from my newsletter than I do from any marketing that I do about my actual like branding, logo design, whatever business. Like the digital marketing is so detached. I get so many more leads and people who know who I am because I just showed up consistently enough and built a brand based off of that. Some people are surprised to find out that my freelance actually has a name and it's not just my personal name. So that being said, be consistent as hell. You don't have to be known as anything. Unfortunately, Networking Queen is taken. You don't have to be known as anything. You can just be known as you, but you have to be known. And in order to be known, you have to show up a couple times and then you have to continue, because as soon as you fall off the map, you gotta start all over again. But if you're showing up consistently, we get to talk about scaling a little bit. So when you have that bench, right? There's a couple of different ways that you can scale your networking, and I have done this now, and I've had a couple people ask me, I see you out a little bit less. Why is that? I have business, which is great. I'm not, scrubbing the floor trying to figure out what I can do to actually make myself money. But once you get to the point where people actually know who you are, you can be a little bit more picky and choosy with where you're going. So for example, for me, I'm trying to hit those more high profile events because I've scaled my business, and so I want people that are making a little bit more money, obviously. But for me as well, if there's ever, any unstructured networking events that I'm hitting on a pretty recent basis, I'm not gonna always go to those ones. So for example, there's a couple that happen every other week. I'm probably gonna go to those maybe, twice a quarter. I'll show my face, I'll be there, I'll talk to people, I'll bring my bench with me, but I'm not gonna be grubbing those ones as hard because I know those people know who I am, and I've been there enough that any of the repeat offenders that are at that event, they already know me, we already have an established basis, they'll reach out to me if they've got something. That's more just keeping the relationship up, keeping it warm, keeping everything comfortable, but it's not proving myself to anybody anymore. Like, they've seen that I show up. We no longer need to do that step. So you can scale your events that way, but then also dividing and conquering. So with my little group of girlfriends that I network with, our girl club will routinely split up. So there's like a couple groups of 2 of us, and so 2 of us will go to a golf event, 2 of us will go to a beauty event, and we're all still pitching each other. But then we don't have to all buy a $45 ticket to an event. That way we're dividing and conquering. Maybe they're the same night, who knows? But having that group of people that know what you do intimately, and you've been around enough that maybe the people they're talking to at least know who you are, then you don't have to be everywhere at once, which is super, super helpful. And then, if you're doing all of those pieces, the lead generation finds you. People are going to start coming into your DMs. People are going to start knowing who you are, filling out the forms on your website because it's being sent places by people. The amount of people that I get sent by people that I met once and I'm like, oh my God, he remembered me. Like, I can't believe that we made a connection that's like smooth in one conversation. That kind of thing is so valuable, and the more that you're present and the more that you're out there and the more that you're upkeeping it, the more that that's just going to organically come to you, and the less that you're going to have to work on actually grinding to create the process that surrounds it. And then, and I think this is the most important, be nice to the baby networkers when you get to that point. And what I mean by that is, you know how it feels from the beginning of the process that we discussed earlier to walk into a room and feel like you're a high schooler in a lunchroom and be like, oh my God, I don't know who to talk to. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's got a bench and it's uncomfortable. You know how that feels because you've been there. Be comfortable bringing the new people in. Not only is that helpful to you and helpful to your business, but there is nothing more rewarding than helping somebody else feel like their business is going to go somewhere. And in the beginning, it's intimidating as hell to start a business, to try to make a name for yourself. So being really comfortable finding and nurturing the next generation of networkers that are gonna come after you, whether they're 6 months behind you or 6 years, who knows, right? Being comfortable talking to those people, they're gonna give you new perspectives. They might bring their bench with them. Be very unafraid of that piece. And lest we forget synergy. And this is more just an opinion piece on my end, but I think that there is a very large, especially in marketing, to be honest with you, I think there's a very large gap in people feeling comfortable collaborating. So you might see the phrase, it's trafficked online a lot. I think that a lot of people are scared of collaboration. There's a lot of competition that happens at the bottom, and there's a lot of collaboration that happens at the top. People who truly want to succeed and want others to succeed are collaborating, they're sharing resources, they're recommending other people, they're making connections. When I meet somebody that makes sense for you, even if I've met you once, I'm making the connection, I'm sending the referral, because even if it doesn't harm me, it helps you, right? And I think that that is one of the biggest pieces of networking that I have taken away from the people I've met with that have stood out the most to me is, okay, this person barely knows me and they're sending me a warm lead because like they just want to see me succeed. I think that that piece is so massive. People will remember you for that because no one's doing it and they should be. Don't be afraid to pass leads, to refer to people, to make connections. Even if it's not something that you're gonna benefit from, it's gonna benefit somebody else and it's not going to take anything from you in the process, and that piece is so important. And then a shameless plug. If this is all very terrifying for you and this is all pieces of, a puzzle that you really don't want to be putting together, I obviously can help you with that. So when I put out my newsletter, it goes out every Sunday. It is just a very, very, it's not vague, but it's got enough information on all the events that I personally think are worth attending in Buffalo over the next week. I try to include Niagara County wherever I can. I don't include virtual events because I think that that's, it's not Buffalo really. And this description here is actually for ColorCode today, but I just do a brief description on what the event is, where it is, the registration, what you should be wearing and how much it is. I don't also tend to push out things that are like you have to be a member or you have to be a member of a community to join. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, not very helpful. But I put that out every Sunday, and if that's something that would be helpful to you, it'll be in the QR code on the next slide. But I understand how uncomfortable and frustrating it is to try to go through and figure out where the hell I should be for the next month, partially because a lot of event organizers are not very good at keeping up the marketing. It's a lot, and marketing is expensive. So if you need a place where it's all put together in one spot, it's available with that QR code. I'm on LinkedIn, please feel free to find me. I am also super, super open to any conversations. If anybody's got questions about where specifically should I be going to network, who should I be talking to, what kinds of industries should I be adding to my bench? Are there people that you know that I should know? I'm the first person to pass a referral. My print guy probably hates me because I'm constantly referring so many people to him, but when I find somebody that's good at what they do, I'm shouting their name everywhere. So if you've got questions about who you should be talking to, where you should be talking to them, or you just want to chat because you're a yapper like me, please let me know. And that's it. Thank you. Anybody have any questions I can answer? No, I don't have purse fries with me today. Good. Man, I must have been great if no one's got questions.
What's your dog's name?
Hip Shot, after the old cowboys in Gunsmoke. He is a 140-pound German Shepherd. And you and I will connect on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
That's a connect. Yes.
Wow.
Amazing.
How do you keep the fries warm?
I eat them very fast. I get the fries and then I go into the event and I eat like at least half the container before I finish. I'm a sipper, so it takes me a second to get through a drink, so if I can like level the fries with that, I'm usually pretty safe.
Nothing
Yeah.
worse than cold fries.
No, if you ever find an insulated purse though, let me know because that would be sick.
Oh, yeah.
Matthew.
What has your personal favorite networking event been that you've ever been to?
So there was an event that was thrown and it became an amoeba event. But it's where I've met so many people that are on my bench currently, including actually John, I met you at that event. There was an event thrown by Quality Contacts, and usually they do a little bit more structured of a networking event, so those ones are like Walmart, B&I, they're a little bit more generic, but still a structured meetup. But occasionally they'll do a happy hour, and somehow somebody on Alignable, if any of you guys are familiar, Alignable is like Diet LinkedIn, it's not that great, but it is what it is. Somebody on Alignable heard about it and published it after the Quality Contacts people had decided they were no longer taking registrations. We were at Giancarlo's on Main Street in Williamsville, and the entire restaurant was packed with people, standing room, talking to people. I met more people that night than I have ever met in my entire life. I met my best friend, two of my best friends actually. I networked a ton, I ran out of cards, and I was out till 3 a.m. just talking to people about networking and marketing and everything that we do, and I have maintained most of the people that I talked to that night, which is an insane turnover amount. So definitely, if you see ones that feel big or they don't feel like they are entirely your thing and you're not sure, if you have a gut instinct that you should go, because that one was instrumental to me. I don't think I would be where I am today without that singular event.